Okay, so this is going to be section 5 of my C++ tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to be covering one-dimensional arrays, and we're also going to implement strings, and I'm actually going to give a little bit more information on strings since I haven't covered those yet, and then we're also going to go into two-dimensional arrays, okay? So just like the other videos, I'm going to continue using Visual Studio, okay? Now the first thing we're going to want to do so that way we can use strings in this one-dimensional array is we're going to do number include, and then you just want to type string, okay? So then come back down, and if there was a red squiggly underneath it, it'll go away shortly once it realizes what's there, okay? Now we're going to want to do string city, and then do square bracket 5, okay? Now this is how you declare an array. It's data type, array name, and then size of the array. And one thing to note is the 5 isn't 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's actually 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? And then we're also going to do float temp and make it 5 as well, okay? So we're going to be taking 5 city names as well as 5 temperatures and storing them in these two arrays. So it's pretty simple to actually get values into the array. So we're going to say for int x equals 0 while x is less than 5, x plus plus, and then just do squiggly bracket tab, and then cout city name, and then cin city, which is the array name, square bracket x, okay? And that's going to be referencing the element number that you're currently on within the for loop, okay? So the first run through the loop, you'll store this value in city 0. The second run, you'll store it in city 1, okay? So that way you don't overwrite what's stored there. And then for the next one, you just do temp x, same exact way, okay? So right now, all it's going to do is print out, and we're going to enter it in. And let's say we also want to print this, okay, like the results. So just copy this for loop. Come down here and hit Control V, and then do another set of brackets. And then do a cout statement. And then what we're going to want to see out is city x, and then we're going to do, I'm just going to put like 3 spaces there, and then say temp x as well, and then I'm going to end the line, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and run this, and one thing to just be aware of is when you're entering a city name, you cannot enter a city name that that has more than one word to it. Like you couldn't say New York City, okay? And I'll explain that a little bit further at the end of this one-dimensional exercise, okay? And I'll kind of give you some reasoning why and some supporting, something we've done before that kind of supports that idea. Alright, so ask for city name. Too damn cold is the temperature. And then you'll see that it prints those out, okay? And you might be like, well, why is it uneven spacing? And that just has to deal with how we formatted it. We said city x, and then quote 3 spaces, okay? So, and some of the words, of course, are longer than others, but a few of them it look like the first Towson, Boston, Inwood, they all lined up the same, okay? But we're not worried about format. Right now we're just worried about functionality, okay? So hopefully you have a pretty good idea of how to use a one-dimensional array. Alright, and you might be like, well, why couldn't we just store city name and temperature within the same array? And that's because you can't store name as a float, okay? And really, we could have stored these temperatures as strings. We just wouldn't have been able to do calculations on them, which we're going to want to do calculations on them. Okay, so that's why we just stored them as floats, and we just had them enter them in separately. Now, you might be wondering, well, why can't I say New York City? Well, if you think back to in section 1 of my C++ tutorials, when we tried to enter in age and gender, we entered them in on the same CN line. But the way we separated which one we were entering to was we just put a space. So we would simply say, like it asked us a prompt, and then we just typed age and gender. Okay, so when you, like if you were going to say New and York, it would treat each of these phrases as if they were supposed to go into different variables. And you'll notice that city X, this CN statement is only pointing into one location within memory. And I'm actually going to run it and show you what happens if you type New York, okay? It'll give us an error. Okay? And you'll see that it kind of overloads it all, okay? Just because it doesn't know how to handle this. So, you just want to be aware of strings and some of their restrictions. Alright? So we're going to move on now from one-dimensional arrays and strings to a two-dimensional array. And I'm kind of going to, instead of showing us a program that has some form of functionality, we're actually going to begin typing a tic-tac-toe game. So to start things off, we're going to want to just do character TTT, and then to do a two-dimensional array, you just give it give it a row and a column. Okay, the first one is the row, second is the column, and then we're going to give it a for loop. So for int x equals 0, x is less than 3, and x plus plus. And just in case you haven't realized yet, this less than 3, you want it to correspond with the value within the array, okay? Unless you only want to enter so many of something, like let's say you have an array that has room for 100, but you only want to enter 20, you could say, well, x is less than 20, and it would only fill up 0 through 19 of the array. And then within this for loop, what we're going to do is we're actually going to do a nested for loop like we did previously. And we're going to say int y equals 0, while y is less than 3 as well, and then y plus plus. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to do ttt x and then y. And we're going to equal that to a question mark. Okay? Which that's going to go through every element within this array and give it, it's just going to store a question mark in that spot, which shortly is going to be replaced by X's and O's. So the next step in this is going to be, we're actually going to copy this first, the outer loop, and paste it down here. Hit enter. Here actually, sorry, 1, 2, 5. I'll make this bigger. Just realized that it was smaller. And we're going to start things off by doing a cout end L. And then what we're going to want to do is a for int y equals 0, and while y is less than 3, y plus plus. Cout ttt x y, and what we're going to want is we're just going to want one space between each question mark. Okay, and I'm actually going to go ahead and run this just so you can kind of see what it's doing so far. Hopefully no errors. Okay, so this is what we have right now. 3 rows, 3 columns, and there's a space in between each column. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to move this back one. Next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to say int x, y. You can also declare variables like that. Okay, and then we're going to say cout enter first move of tic tac toe, and we're going to tell them it has to be x then y, and it also has to be 0, 1, or 2, because as we noted before, the values in this array, even though it is up to 3, the numbers that we're going to use are 0, 1, and 2. Okay, so they have to enter 0, 1, or 2 for each different row. Okay, so now that they know that, we're going to do a cn statement, and we're going to have them enter into the x and the y, just like we told them in the question, or in the query. Now we're going to do TTT and then X, Y, because those were the choices that they gave us, is going to be equal to an X. We'll make it an uppercase X and the semicolon. And now what we have to do is we're just going to copy this loop exactly like we had it, okay? And we're going to paste it there, okay? And what this will do, I'm going to show you. So it tells us to enter the first move. So let's say we want to put one at 1, 1, which is going to be in the middle. And you'll see that it places an X right in the middle, okay? And we're going to press any key to continue. So then, to counter that, what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this segment right here. Actually, we can copy all of this and paste it here. And all we have to do is change this to an O and tell them to enter the second move of tic-tac-toe, okay? And if we run this, you'll again see that it allows the user to enter in the second move, and it'll save it as an O. So let's say they want to put one at 0, 0. Okay, so put one up in the top left-hand corner, and let's say this next guy wants to put one at 2, 2. You'll see it put as O down here. Now, one thing I want you to be aware of, is I'm going to run this one more time, is if I enter, let's say I want to go in 1, 2, it'll be an X. But if I hit 1, 2 again, it lets me overwrite that, okay? So we're not going to get into it now because you have to, it would basically just be a bunch of if statements, okay? But we're not going to want, we're not going to get into that because we've already gone over ifs. It'd basically be if that memory location already has an X or an O, then prompt the user to enter a different spot and inform them that that spot is already taken, okay? So that's basically how you get around that. And we're not going to go on from here just because it's going to get repetitive because we're just going to be copying, pasting, okay? So if you guys want to go ahead with it, you could. You could even put this within a function and have a counter. And if it's even, then mark it as an X. If it's odd, mark it as an O. There's a bunch of different ways about going on to finish this problem. So if you want to, go for it. If not, hopefully I see you guys in the next section, which we're going to actually be talking about reading from a file and exporting data to a text file, which that can come in a lot of handy, and that's going to be very useful. So hopefully I'll see you guys then. Thanks for watching.